designing something that costs teams more wasted time than a bad SQL or a broken dashboard. This is basically designing a wrong analysis. You probably know the feeling, right? You spend a week building charts and cohorts, you present probably to your product leader or a VP, and then all they say is interesting, but that's not what I'm looking for. So today, I'm going to show you how a 7-line framework prevents that and an AI system that makes the whole process automatic. Okay, let's get started. Before we get started, we start with a typical quiz. Can you basically give your answers at a quick poll? Hi, I'm Sean. We'll look at, please let me know once it's done, what is the most popular choice? So this is your question. If your VP says conversion dropped last week and you have 1 hour, almost like an SLA that you reply in an hour because it's your VP, what would you do? Do you do A, B, C, or D? One thing I want to let you all know, no judging here at all. I think all options are pretty common. Like we all actually go through all these options, but I want to make sure, what would you do first? Can you please start giving your answers? Yeah, looks like we're getting some messages.
Got a lot of C's, got some A's.
Yeah.
Got
Okay,
a B.
okay, that's awesome. Okay, so is the popular ones between A, B, C?
I think C is the most popular, but we got a lot of A's also.
Awesome.
Two of them
Okay.
said A and D, or no, A then D.
Ah, you know what? So here's the thing, right? I think we have some good set of people if you're starting with C, but there's a lot of people that I've worked with in my career that we start with A and B. I myself have done it. I myself have started with A and B, right? But I understand that that's the instinct to just jump in and understand what it is. But we probably need clarifying questions to understand, what does VP even mean when he means by conversion rate drop? Does he mean week over week, year over year? What conversion is he talking about? Is he talking about like sign up to activation conversion rate? Is he talking about like people free user to upgrading conversion rate? So knowing these basic questions, and also, hey, why are you even asking this? Do you have a board deck that you are going for to report on these things? Or is it just something that you're curious about? All of these things would help you like understand how do you want to go about answering that question. So most of the time, especially when I started out, so much of time was spent in just assuming answers for these questions and going ahead and doing these analysis. But you would benefit a lot, and a lot of cost, time is reduced if you ask those clarifying questions. One thing I want to say before we go into the next slides is that this designing analysis like workshop today would also help you for interviews. If you're applying for interviews, if you've done data interviews and data science stuff, you definitely see yourself actually having at least a couple of interviews. For example, in companies like Meta and any tech company in Bay Area, for sure has how they have a question like, literally, this dropped last week, what do you do? It's literally this question, and they are looking for you to come up with a framework and a set of things. So byproduct, along with learning how to use Claude Code to learn it in your work today, you would also probably learn how to do it the best way in an interview. Cool. So let's go to the next slide. I want to say something. What will you have at the end of, probably optimistic, by minute 32? You'll basically see a structured analysis plan document, the kind basically that you'd share with your the pod in the sense the team that you're part of, your PM, your tech lead, before you spend a week running queries. I've seen a lot of junior DS, if they have a question, they jump right into analysis and start putting things in a doc on the analysis. But agreeing with your stakeholders on what you're going to look at for the analysis is the first key step. And there is a framework on how you want to do it. And this is what we're going to cover today. Okay. And you would basically see the final output as at the end of the session. Okay, before we do the big demo, I want to show you something quick. This has been a style that I've been doing in my last 3 workshops. I want to show you something super quick and in the Claude Code, and we can jump into the theory behind it. And then, wait, where's my Claude Code? Okay, cool. So let's get started. This is like a quick demo I want to, oops. I was using Whisperflow to get started and I clicked on it quite early. So let me just do this. My VP of product just sent me this. Conversion rate dropped last week. Can you look into it? So I used Whisperflow to get me this. And Claude Code, as you see, we have a bunch of skills and agents that we've built that we're going to cover in the bootcamp starting tomorrow. This is the initial set. This is not using the fancy skills and agents. This is something a question framework and stuff helps us get here, right? So what does it do? It asks which conversion rate? Recommendation, like, what do you do and where it breaks? And then what does drop compare to what? Prior week, trailing week, same week last year? Like so many things could be looked at. And the hypothesis tree ranked by likelihood. Drop is one funnel stage, not drop is in one funnels, not at all. The category is product. First check conversion by stage, week over week. And then you have things like traffic mix shifted, device browser broke, like all these wonderful reasons that are the hypothesis for something like this getting started, right? And then it says investigation priority as check these 3 things first. And then draft reply to your VP. Isn't it pretty cool? It gives you a Slack message as well. So thanks looking into this today. Quick questions. Which conversion rate are you seeing a drop? Any known changes last week? So it also helps you with that as well. So this, I would say, is the most minimum Claude Code framework that it uses based on all the data that we shared with it. And I also have a fancy demo later after we cover the theory behind what we're going for today. Okay? Cool. So what the system produced basically in the one sentence, it's not even a detailed prompt, right? And I didn't give even any instructions because this is all of that knowledge, it gathered from the Claude MD files, it gathered from the existing skills agents in the context we built in our repo. And what did it was the output? The system clarified what conversion means because there are 4 different conversion rates in most products, right? And it clarified what drop means and dropped compared to what. It generated 7 possible causes and ranked them, causes the hypothesis, right? And it told me where to get started. Now, those likelihood rankings are based on general patterns, but in your company, you basically give it enough context that it picks up the context that you're working with in your company, and it'll help you with like, what are the hypotheses for the context that you gave? This is something that it picked today in demo that we are showing like generic context and generic hypothesis, okay? So the framework gives you basically the structure in which that you want to plan your analysis and the type of questions you need to ask the person who basically, asked you to go do the analysis. I'm going to give you a free prompt today, basically that you could use in any of the web tools, in ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, because not every one of you would have access to the complete some of the agents and skills that we're building. That would be, we will be sharing them in the bootcamp. We have the bootcamp tomorrow, but we'll also I'll also share with you this free prompt. Along with this, you also have access to the free, give me a minute. You also have access to the free AI analyst repo that we have that has a skill for analysis design as well. The complicated analysis design and tools and skills for it, that would be part of the bootcamp. Okay. So what I showed you is like the system working, right? One sentence in and structured plan out. The free prompt I just show you gets you the most value, and also the free AI analyst repo that we have in GitHub, that could also give you most of it. But if you want to run this investigation in like a repeatable fashion and you want to build those skills and agents yourself, we are running a analyst bootcamp. Tomorrow is when we are starting. So today is the last day that you get into this cohort, guys. So here we have like a Claude Code, a code for you to get at least 20% off. We also have a 5-week, oh, it says async, but it is also a sync course, sorry for that. But we also have a 5-week course where we go through the entire detail of what we built in these agents. How do you even come up with these questions? What are the metric trees? How do we do the root cause decomposition? Like, as a data scientist in tech, what are some workflows you go through? We have a course coming for that called AI Analytics for Builders. Okay, now let's go to the next step, which is the 7-step framework that I was talking about that's built into our Claude Code skills and agents. So before you run any analysis, you should be able to fill in 7 lines, right? I call this analysis design brief. It's not a checklist. It is like a thinking tool. Each line forces a decision that most people, like maybe at least the most people that don't have context about how things work in data science, they skip. So question forces you to pin down the metric, pin down the platform, pin down the time frame. So, and this comes from clarifying what the initial question came out to be, right? And another very, very important thing, a lot of people, especially younger junior folks, miss is the decision part. So especially if VPs and, like the head of something with big titles come up, they do not ask, hey, what if I give you this wonderful analysis that you're looking for, answering this question, what would you do with it? If they're, you'll be surprised with some of the answers. Some of them would just say, hey, yeah, I just thought, this could just help us get more clarity about what a user wants. That to me is not a great decision. Imagine if they'd say, we want to run this experiment and we want to prioritize this framework and assign engineers to go after this feature. That's the type of decision you'd need. Anything that says something like, oh, I was just curious about this is not a great decision that you want to spend cycles answering those questions with that analysis, right? So ensuring that you have a decision ready before you go start exploring the analysis is very important so that you don't end up spending a lot of time on it. And another, like a bunch of things like you would need are the hypothesis. The hypothesis basically makes you commit to what to expect. So you can, actually be wrong. Maybe there's a hypothesis, people say, hey, there is something happening with our new feature that just caused this. So that you could do the analysis and prove it wrong or prove it right. And comparison is the next one. Comparison is where people default to compare to last month without even thinking about seasonality, natural experiments, what's happening out in the wild. So that's not related to your company, but something that's happening like outside, like in the ecosystem. And then the next one is segments. Segments is where Simpson's paradox and other things hide. You might see something at a higher level, but when you start seeing segments, then you see total, sometimes you would see entirely contradicting things. New users are absolutely doing great, but it's something like existing users or older users, account age with more than 2 years are where we are struggling for this metric. You might come up with something like that if you start looking at segments. And another very important thing is confounds. It is like confounds is the one everyone, to be honest, kind of skip as well. So 3 things that changed at once and which one caused it. There could be something like happening in the ecosystem, happening like there's an experiment, there's a marketing campaign. How do you define which is the cause behind it? Having them listed out is absolutely going to help you get started. And then criteria is what separates investigation from rationalization, right? We'll go through basically each of these, this with like real examples, and also possibly do this with Claude Code in like one prompt. Okay. Bad versus good. Before I go, hi and Sean, anything in chat that I want to know about? Or pause because I've been talking too much.
You can go ahead.
I can go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Question. So the left version looks reasonable, right? I mean, you've got a metric, you've got a direction, you're even breaking it down by channel, device. But which conversion, browse to cart, cart to checkout, checkout to purchase, like, like last week compared to what? The week before, same week last year, a trailing average. What do we mean by, all of these things? Knowing these could mean so many things, right? So the right version pins down the exact metric, the exact platform, the exact comparison. And you can design an investigation for that. And the decision on the left, if you see that, it's like we need to understand what's happening with conversion so the team has visibility. That's a pretty, I would say something that accounts to like a not a great decision that you would spend a lot of time working on. So the right version names like two specific actions, like reward the checkout flow or brief marketing and have a deadline, so that the changes that you propose as part of the analysis, the recommendations actually have like an outcome. And it also helps you understand how deep you want to go in the analysis or how fast you want to turn around the analysis. So the decision is the one that's another one that's pretty important. Okay, and let's go through these quickly as well. The hypothesis, comparison, and segments. The left version has a hypothesis, which is, I mean, better than nothing, right? But pulling the data and confirming is confirmation bias baked in. So the right version is falsifiable. It predicts a specific magnitude, specific category, specific customer type. You can actually be wrong because you're going to test in the analysis to go after, verifying the hypothesis, and there's a chance, a good chance that your data returns that, hey, this hypothesis was not true. And then comparison, week over week and month over month sound like solid analytics, but last month might have had a promotion. The week before might have had a holiday. So the right version finds a natural experiment also along with all of these things, like a mobile removed the widget first, or desktop still has it, but mobile removed it, basically. Same customers, but different timing. So all of these are something that you want to look at in detail when you're talking about comparison. And the similar thing for segments as well. I'm trying to move on fast so that we have time for the demo, okay? Cool. So the next one is the confounds and the criteria. So we'll control for the seasonality and check if anything else has changed. That sounds reasonable, right? That's one on the left. So it's not necessarily bad, but we can definitely, enhance it so that it actually becomes useful. So something on the right that you see is that loyalty program restructured same week. And marketing also ran a 15% off new customer promo. And guess what? You might also find something with the data pipelines too. Like data engineering changed the mobile tracking pixel mid-month. So in reality, I'm sure all of you deal with this as well. I deal with this a bunch in my in my experience as well, is that you have multiple confounds happening at the same time. And that's what makes this entire, designing the analysis plan and also doing the analysis quite tricky. So having that written down helps you go through the data and actually see attributions of these multiple styles to ensure that you covered for them in your analysis. Now, what about the criteria? So on the left, something that looks reasonable but not too great is that if the data supports the widget theory, we'll recommend restoring it. I'm not sure if that's the detail that we'd want. So the criteria on the right that we'd want to be slightly more detailed is that accept if consumables dropped greater than 3 percentage points on mobile, but not desktop, because the loyalty change doesn't explain the timing, right? And reject if the drop is uniform across all categories and platforms, then that would mean that it's not a mobile versus desktop thing. So having the criteria locked down is also pretty important. Okay, so one thing, I think I've said it multiple times already, but to make sure that I actually nail it down, is every failed analysis violates at least one line, you know. So the scoping black hole, someone says, look into conversion, and you spend 3 days on a wrong metric. The fishing expedition, right? No hypothesis means that you'll find a pattern in anything. I remember even at our previous place, Sean used to be very good at forcing stakeholders to like, guys, give me a bunch of hypotheses. You want me to go after this question? I have this hypothesis, but what about like if you have this question, ensure that you know the product enough that you give me these hypotheses. I remember this tough conversations from last experience with Sean and others. But yeah, make sure that not just you ensure that you work with your stakeholders and your teams to get these hypotheses written down, and also keep your stakeholders accountable so that they have a list of hypotheses that they want us to look into as well. And yeah, another thing that you'll see is that like Simpson's paradox is something that people miss as well. If the overall number lies and the segments tell the truth. So ensuring that you have a bunch of segments already look into, and especially not just any segment. I know geo comes up very easily, and things like device comes up very easily. But I'll tell you something, in your company, in your context, there are a bunch of segments that are not as generic. In my company specifically, if people were like a paid person before or not, is a segment that you wouldn't probably see as like a generic segment that helps for every type of product, but it is absolutely something that shows always having Simpson's paradox effect in my context. So what are the segments that in your context, in your company, that you would see a difference, and you ensure that you look through them as part of this analysis, right? And then the attribution error is the other thing. 3 things changed at once, the confounds basically, and you picked the one that confirmed your theory. But guess what? There could be so many other things that you missed out on if you did not write them at the get-go in your design analysis plan. And then 2 minutes of design prevents 2 weeks of wasted work. In the sense, 2 minutes is, I'm not talking about the entire design plan coming up with it, but actually the framework check. Did I get the question clarified? Did I get the hypothesis, all the hypotheses listed out? That little ensuring that you check those boxes would help you definitely get to a place where you don't end up 2 weeks from now as like, oh no, I'll need a V2 of this. My V1 was entirely not useful. So ensuring that you go through these would definitely stop you from having a failed analysis. Okay, so now a little sneak peek into the system that we do today. We basically do a kickoff analysis design scale. This basically, I heard myself for some reason. This basically kicks off all these 3, this entire system. And you might have seen this in your place as well. You basically have a question and you come up with a V1 analysis. And then you share the V1 analysis. You have this meeting for it, you share it with your stakeholders, and then you get a bunch of questions or stakeholder feedback. And then you take all those feedback and you take all those questions and you run it again, come up with a new analysis plan that incorporates the feedback and also your V1 analysis, and then the V2 analysis pops out. This is a system that we do today because this is the regular cycle. That's something that I've seen at my place, and I'm sure most of you see this as well. Question, V1, feedback, V2 design, and then V2 output. So I basically have this entire loop. I'm not sure if we'll have time to go through the entire thing, but I can definitely share with you the first one, the design for the V1 and the V1 analysis plan by itself, and the findings and what do V2 came up with. The last 2 things I probably not have time to demo with you, but I can share with you the output of what something I have already created that I could share with you. Okay. So one thing that I want to again talk about is in the bootcamp, you don't just watch the system like how you're doing today. You basically will build it. So the skills, the agents, the document pipeline, all of it becomes part of your personal AI analyst repo. You could already have this because we do have a free AI analyst repo, but this bootcamp would cover a bunch of new agents and a bunch of new skills, along with helping you create them yourself so that you wouldn't need others to train you, or like you don't have to watch this, but you could actually create one. And maybe you do this in your company, wherever you are, but you train other people on how to do this. So yeah, today is the last day to get into the bootcamp. Tomorrow, this weekend is when we are going to have the bootcamp. Okay, so today's analysis, we basically, I think, jumping into the demo, I'll try to do the demo in the next 10-15 minutes so that I have the last 10-15 minutes for the questions. Let's see how we'll do. So what is the demo that I'm going for? Today, we'll be doing cart loop, online marketplace for home goods. This is something that you probably might have seen it in your companies. If you're a data person, if you're a PM, you probably do this to your data people as well, or maybe your own analysis that you want to kick off. Basically, there is something with repeat purchase rate. Let's say a PM has a hunch, right? I think our repeat purchase rate dropped because we removed the post-purchase recommendations widget last month. Customer support tickets mentioning I used to see suggestions after buying have increased. This is absolutely a hunch currently. It doesn't have any data that's backing up. It doesn't have any metrics that say, because they probably maybe don't have an experiment as well that looked at this removal and looked at the metrics change. Ideally, when these changes happen, you want to put that behind an experiment. But there are a bunch of reasons why in companies this doesn't happen today. Every change is not behind an experiment. So the data team gets asked these questions. And let's get into understanding how do we do this. Okay. What is this demo 2 going to be? We are going to basically take the hunch and basically go through the PM's hypothesis. How do the agents sharpen these hypotheses, scan through the whole thing, and do the terminal? And then we'll have this for you, the V1 analysis plan, the V1 findings combined with feedback, and then V2 analysis plan. So the terminal is basically agents thinking, and documents is basically what you'd share with your team. So let me jump into the Claude Code. Anything quickly, Sean or Hai, before I jump in?
Greg says, I've been the source of these hunches many times.
Transparency.
No judgment here, Greg.
Well, when I kind of posted on this on LinkedIn, I think like the whole analysis design thing is like a translation kind of process when an analyst gets hunches or questions from or comments from stakeholders. But I also think like it doesn't have to be the analyst doing that, can be like anyone, right? Like if like stakeholders, non-analysts have their hunches, like they can go through this analysis design process to kind of like get it a little more into the language of the analyst. Although I don't know, if I also had a stakeholder that was like, hey, do this very specific type of analysis, like Claude Code said you should do it, then I don't know how to react to that either. But I just like the translation piece here on either end.
Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm calling an analysis design skill here, which in turn will call a bunch of skills and agents to get this started. So all I'm doing is whatever I just told you, I am copy pasting here. I'm giving it the data as well. Let's see what will come up. Okay, so analysis design pipeline. If you see what it's coming up with, give me a minute. I didn't give it. So if you see this, it basically is talking about analysis design pipeline. I'll investigate this in 3 stages. hypothesis sharpener, because there's already a hunch, right? How do we make sure this hunch is actually a testable claim? So that's the first one. And then the second one is confound scanner, find everything that could make this wrong. And the third thing is the investigation plan. Prioritize what to check first. So these are the 3 stages that it's going to run this, okay? So now stage 1, hypothesis sharpener. It basically is looking at the stated cause, stated effect, implied metric, implied time frame, because it was a pretty detailed, hunch with details. And also the assumptions. The assumptions was widget was a primary driver, the drop is uniform, like no other changes occur simultaneously. Those are the assumptions, obviously, because if that's something that you have a hunch. And then what is missing? It basically talked about everything that's missing here. So it has a testable hypothesis and also a secondary hypothesis. It also has the metric definition. It has what is gives you notes, like the nuance as well. Like repeat purchase here means any subsequent purchase, not same category purchase. And also talks about like this is going to be different if it's going to be that. And then it talks about comparison groups, natural experiment, like what this versus this, and widget users versus non-widget users, before versus after, the same population and stuff. And then it also has accept or reject criteria, accept if widget users show greater than 2x, or, things like that. Reject if, so and so. So these are like a bunch of things, like this is the analysis design brief that we have, and investigation priority. What are the multiple steps that we have, and it prioritized it based on why we want to prioritize it, right? So, and then it has a stage 1 summary. So what it says is testable hypothesis, best comparison, and what is the key insight. Now it starts at stage 2. So it gave you the debrief of what it's going through fully, and then goes through the stage 1, gives you debrief of what's your hypothesis sharpener, and then goes to stage 2. All of these demos, so this is a demo, right? All I'm trying to show you is what is the capability of Claude Code here. How do you do this at your work is something that we could discuss in the bootcamp, and also something that you basically give it the context, give it the memory and skills that your company and your business would, have the nuances of your area, which it would take into consideration while coming up with this. Different stages and, the confounds and other things. Okay, now what is the stage 2? It started the stage 2 and there's a confound scanner. In the stage 2, it's basically going through the claim. Removing the post-purchase recommendation widget led to a 3.77 pp decline, and it comes up with what are the other concurrent changes it found. So how does it, in an ideal world in your company, how could you do this? What I do is I have MCPs attached to my experimentation platform. I have MCPs attached to my Slack, most important Slack channels where we keep sharing our experimentation updates. It basically, my system, my Claude Code has skills and agents that grasp these contexts from these multiple places that you gave early on. And this is to demo you that we kind of this already picks it up from the existing data set, but that's how you would do in your workplace. Okay, so it goes to the confound scanner. It found, hey, product has these changes, marketing has these changes, technically these things happen. And there are also data quality threats, the severity of them. And what are the selection biases? Like a bunch of things, a bunch of alternatives and their plausibilities. And then it gives you an entire confound scan report, right? And then this is the stage 2 summary as well. And now at the end, we get stage 3. So this is the final analysis brief. It basically goes through the question, removing the widget, and then the decision, the hypothesis. So this is like the 7 frame workflow that we had. And this is what it gives. Let me give Claude Code. Okay, cool. So review the plan, or should I proceed with weave and execution on the data? I will ask for it something. Let's see if this is going to do this live well or not. If not, I'm going to share with you the weave and doc. Okay, can you, I'll talk to this. can you move this design plan into a Google Doc that I could share with my stakeholders? Use the Google Doc creator and export skills. Let's see if this comes up. So until then, let me read. So it's basically what it's doing currently is it's checking a bunch of skills and agents that I have to ensure that my Google Auth is correct and it has the Google export and the review skill set. Okay. While this happens, anything that's happening in the chat that we want to chat about? This might take a few minutes. Sean or hi?
Yeah, Michael has a question, and this is probably prevalent, I think, from a couple of folks as well. How much do you need to explain your company/product to the tool? Or does Claude figure it out somehow?
That's a great question. Like I don't know if you all tried Claude Code in the before version. When compared to that, it needs a lot less information for sure. To me, in my experience, if you have, looks like my token expired, sorry. Okay, send it here. Let me stop sharing my screen so that I give it my auth and then I can get back. So I was kind of winging it to try this online, like live, but I mean, this is not, this is something that you'll definitely run it. And hi, and Sean, do you want to answer that while I do the auth setup for Google?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty good at reasoning and it's pretty like intuitive in terms of like even if you didn't provide that much detail, but obviously it's going to be way better if you do. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like you sitting down and explaining everything. Like I will literally, so I have it hooked up to like Notion MCP and Google MCP, and I also have repos with a bunch of like my past analyses. And I sometimes go as broad as I'm just like go search Notion and Google, and I have it connected to my Slack too. And my Slack for like this topic around this product and past things I've done in this area. Or if I want it to be a little more focused, I'll just copy and paste a bunch of Notion links or Google Doc links, like, hey, read through all this relevant information, documentation. Also something extremely, I mean, like Claude Code has ORM, right? So it's like really good at reading through code bases. So if you can just give it the repo to your product's code base, it can connect a lot of the dots in terms of like how things flow through as well. Um, so yeah, MCPs, other sources you can connect to make this thing like way more powerful. So I don't know. I'd say the more information you give it, the better. But like even like no information is going to get pretty good.
Yeah, there's also a really fun exercise to do is that if you have it just crawl your company's website, it will be better than if it didn't have that context. So any incremental information you provided, it gets that much better.
And then Greg had a question for you, Shravya. Could you remind which information sources Claude Code accesses here? Like what does it interrogate to check for other concurrent changes to the target metric?
So you're talking about this demo per se, or generally at work, like, where it could get this information from?
And yeah, either one, either the specific case here, but I think Shane also answered it generally, and the rule of thumb is the more information, the better.
Yeah, exactly. Claude is so darn confident. If you don't give it information, it's going to take information from what it knows, obviously from the web, about your specific area or context. And the more information and the nuance you give it your work, the better it gets. And the first time you work with it, the feedback you give it, and the next time and the next time. And by the time you work on a week or 2 weeks with it, it's super smart already. And it does work like way faster than you would if you had like a bunch of these, skills in place already on how to talk to it, how to create these things from the get-go. So guess what? You see this Google Doc created and formatted V1 analysis plan. Is it in this deck? Okay. I'm sharing my Claude Code. So let me share with you what it produced. Okay. This is what it produced, guys. It basically gave the V1 analysis plan, repeat purchase, the context, the questions, the approach, the known risks, the investigation priority, what would change your conclusion, and the deliverable. This is something that you saw that purely was generated by Claude Code. And once we have this, it basically we could use this and start the findings. So ideally, if I had time, because we only have 15 minutes, I could share this analysis plan, feeding that to Claude Code, and Claude Code generating the analysis itself as well. And then we could come up with, hey, this is the feedback on that analysis. Can you come up with a V2 design tool? So I have all of that for you that I kind of already did, and I'd like to share that. Give me a minute. Okay. So what it did is I fed it. I basically did this on the background. I got the V1 analysis plan, and I got it to execute on the analysis plan because it had the data set handy. And then I gave it feedback on it, and then it gave me the V2 analysis plan. So that's what you see. This is the second one. I couldn't do that in today's demo because it's too long, but that's what it says. It's analysis plan V2, revised after V1 findings and stakeholder review. Background. In V1, we investigated so-and-so. It basically gives you all the context to, and it gives what we even established, that there is a real material drop and all of that. But it also talks about what V1 could not resolve, because we generally don't answer all the questions on the earth about something in the first iteration. So you go in the second iteration, and then we talked about what was not handled, and then it talks about the stakeholder feedback incorporated. It takes the stakeholder, this was the concern, and this is how the V2 addresses it. So it talks about the revised questions, it talks about approach, and and a bunch of things. Yeah. I mean, each company does it differently. I just shared one approach. The other approach is a set of questions, a set of segments, and all of those written down as well. So yeah, we have 14 more minutes, but I want to share something pretty quick with you all. This generally, I always really like it. At the end of any session, we could ask Claude, hey, can you share the architecture of how you solved the above? So it basically gives you everything that it did. Every time you work on a complicated problem, you want to understand how it went about and did it. We'll see basically the entire loop. You could ask it to be even more detailed than what it is, what it's giving it right now. So this is what it is. Slash analysis design. Our repeat purchase rate dropped. Architecture preview shows the user 3-stage plan. Data profiling. Coming up with this, and then the stage 1 came in, and then the stage 2, and then the stage 3, and then the auth pre-flight. We had an issue with auth. Ideally, if you add auth, it looks like it's been a week, more than a week I did my auth, so it triggered my auth. But if not, you wouldn't have this stage. Let's say you have this, and then Google Doc Creator. We also have agents and skills for Google Doc Creator and export. And yeah, this is how the entire thing, it talks about how many skills were used, how many agents were invoked, and what tools were used, and what MCP was used. Okay, this is where my demo ends, and we have 12 minutes.
Ahmed have a question. Do we cover any data visualization / dashboarding in the bootcamp or 6-week async courses?
Absolutely. That's literally one of the very important aspects of the courses. So we basically cover even more than that, Ahmad. We cover visualization, dashboarding, and the most important thing, storytelling, and also what you want to visualize in dashboard, basically question framing as well, because all of those are very important into understanding that. So yes, we do cover that in the 6K course, and it's not async. It's totally sync, like it is basically live boot camp. So live course that hi Sean and we run. Yeah. I'm sorry for that typo in the slide, but yes, we do cover that.
Did I miss any questions from anybody? Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to come off mute as well.
Yeah.
Raj, do you want to speak to your question? Ahmad says, take my money. Okay.
Uh, Yeah, absolutely. Hi, thanks for the nice presentations. So I just want to highlight one of the problem statement I'm getting on a regular basis. Like I have the semantic layer, I have the visualization part ready for the AI part. What I'm struggling is how to connect the particular semantic layer to the visualization part. Like I have the data in my database, like data warehouse like Snowflake, and I want to visualize using GPT or Claude, anything that is working perfectly fine. So how to connect that particular piece, that particular Snowflake data to Claude, and that should be refreshed on a daily basis. So that is something I am facing a major challenge in between. Like, so are we covering that particular piece uh, in coming upcoming segment? Like, how do you plan? Are you planning to do that?
I think we'll go more into like the full, like how do you implement this into like a production environment more in our 5 week course. So we'll in our 5 week course, we actually will work with Claude Code. We'll also work with some other third-party tools, like enterprise tools that do some of this for you. Um, this weekend, what we'll talk more about is like how we like build a agentic system from scratch. And I think we could work with you in it actually to be like, hey, let's try and build an agent and skill that refreshes some like HTML dashboard on a regular basis. We
Yeah,
go into
yeah.
MCPs a bit as well too. So I know that there's like depends on like what your company has, right? Like we have like Sigma at our company, and they have an MCP where you can create dashboards directly from Claude Code. So like we could potentially play with something like that, probably more in the 5 week course, but I don't know, maybe we could try and mess around with it tomorrow or and Sunday. We're basically gonna have like how tomorrow's structured, we'll have some like lecture time, example demo time, and then we'll have big blocks both days for about 90 minutes where we're going to do breakout groups from like beginner, intermediate to advanced. And everyone will be kind of like building their own thing with one of the instructors involved.
Mhm.
So if that's like a project you wanted to work on during one of those sessions, I could definitely like try and play around with that with you. But yeah, obviously production pipeline's more involved, so probably like more the 5 week course. We do run uh, a kind of 2-for-1 thing with the 5 week course. So if anyone takes the boot camp and wants to do the full 5 week course afterwards, we just deduct whatever you paid for the boot camp from the 5 week course. So you basically get 2-for-1 um, without having to commit to the 5 week course up front. Did that answer your
Cool.
question?
Yeah, that answers my questions. So there are like particular two problems I'm facing. Like one which I've mentioned, another one is the deployment part, deployment the particular dashboard into somewhere so that everyone can, I can share with any stakeholders on a regular basis, or they can refer that particular link so that they can get to know about the numbers without depending on me or the my team. So those are the two
Yeah.
problems which I have.
One
So.
way one way I've done it
Yeah.
right now is so like if you were to create like a customized dashboard, right, you have to host that somewhere internally at your company, which is totally feasible. We're not necessarily going to go into that because every company is completely different with like how they want to host things internally. So there's like the MCP versus like with like like your whatever your BI tool is route if it offers it. Another thing I actually do is I have a skill where you run this skill and it refreshes like a Google Doc or a Notion page for like a very particular stakeholder that has like a full-on report of everything I know they want. Um, that's like a kind of nice like hacky middle ground way to do it as well. And that's definitely something we'll cover this weekend.
Yeah, and about the BI tools, we're as a team trying to eliminate the BI tools because it's a pain. It's a pain to maintain and
Yeah.
build using BI tools in the era of like AI. So that's where I'm trying to save some time and eliminate the BI tools. But happy to know more about that. But I think the major problem I'm facing is about connecting the data warehouse to the AI part, where I'm so yeah, happy to know about that particular piece.
Yeah, I'm on your side about eliminating BI tools. I know not everyone
I think
is, but
everyone, I
I
think
never want
everyone
to
is
maintain a dashboard again. So
yeah,
I like this idea of eliminating them and even getting stakeholders self-serve empowered enough where they can be building their
yes,
own
yeah,
dashboards themselves. Because if you think about it, like they know what they want. They know that the question of what they want, but they need like the trust in the data. So if we can create a system where they're like, hey, I want to add a filter to this. I want to add another dimension, but I don't have to go to an analyst. I can just do it myself. That'd be pretty cool. There's obviously trust stuff with the data there, but that's kind of where I see the future going.
cool.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sam.
and the line of sight is pretty clear if you have one of these like I mean even if it's not one of these kind of like big name data warehouses like you probably have some Snowflake, Databricks or something like
Yeah,
that. There's a very clear path to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like Databricks, Snowflake, I'm sure all of the big name ones have MCP set up. But for other things that probably your company doesn't have an MCP or don't have one, you know where, Dheeraj, what something you could do is show them what good looks like. Hey, if I had access to this, you put a CSV
yeah,
there and show them, guys, this is what I want, and I'm going to help you just, get so much more money for free if you had this like these type of systems set up for us, because in some companies I know security is a big thing. People are worried about that, so we don't there are a bunch of ways to go around it, like to ask these tough questions, and management, when you show what is possible and what is stopping you from getting there, they would we could people will find some ways to get you there.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that point. Yeah.
What other
Okay.
questions? Anything else?
Uh, Hello, I have one. Thank you first for all of this presentation. I think now is the time where all the data should be self-service, right? Because actually I'm pointing to get that in my company. But what happen if I apply this, for example, with the after that? Where can we set up some kind of feedback loops or framework of improving data analytics? For example, we have something that we want to decrease, which is the retention in my company, and we are preparing with Claude like something to prevent that. Okay, so in your business area or in your companies, how do you manage to possible propose the plan, but actually get some feedback in feedback loops to make this work actually something functional, right? Because you are providing the insight, you are telling where we have to go, and how that happen with that insight after. Are we going to cover that maybe in that session or?
So I think so just to come up to kind of summarize. So you're asking like after we get to like the insight from the analysis, how do you then like implement that
Yeah, exactly.
afterwards and then get like a feedback loop going so like consistently is being executed.
Exactly. It's how do you manage that cycle? Because this is potentially is very help for make the insight and validate hypothesis.
Yeah.
But in your framework, how do you manage to, okay, how can we continue improving that or seeing if the people are applying the action plans that maybe we can propose, right?
Yeah, we do. So in our 5-week course the last week, we spend on basically like insight to action. It's more about like how do you like it's more like an organizational change. How do you like share out your information? But I think so there's that piece of it where it's just like presenting and getting buy-in, etc. But I think there's also like a question there around like, okay, I armed with AI, like I have these insights. Can I do it myself? Or so I've been doing some of that at my job, which is this is kind of what I think is the future of like the data role, where it's like you start going more end to end, where instead of just us doing analysis, we start going up funnel and building data foundations, but also start being like, all right, we have some insights like, can I now, whether I work in go to market or in product, can I actually go into some code and leverage Claude Code to like try and test and proof of concept some of these things out. So I've done a bit of that at my day job. Um, and like I've found it pretty compelling to be like, I've got the insight and now I can like kind of have like a sandbox of like the production code where I'm going to try to apply it myself. And then I work with like software engineers to be like, hey, like I'm actually seeing increases in retention or decreases or in the predicted retention or whatever based on what came out here. Can like I kind of pass this off to you to like implement that or like work on it some more? There's also this whole thing the past like couple of weeks, auto research like from Carpathy, where it's like an actual like autonomous loop where the code is like if you have some type of metric to optimize the code, like they just change the code itself, then see if that like brings your metric up or down, does an analysis, comes up with new hypotheses, tests it again. I think there's like a whole field of software engineering that goes that direction. We're not going to cover that stuff in this boot camp. Um, and we're probably just going to cover like more of like the share out stuff in the 5-week. But um, yeah, I'm playing with an idea about doing like a 2-week course on that it's called Automate AI Evals. Um, and maybe we'll create something else too. But I think definitely like coming out of this, you should feel empowered to be like, hey, can I go the next step forward? Like the insight doesn't have to stop at me passing it off to a stakeholder.
Exactly. Perfect, Shane. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Cool.
I think you had a question.
Yeah. Do we want to answer this one last question here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Actually, Maxine, if you're still on the line, do you mind sort of like reading out your question to the group?
Hi, thank you so much, Pi, for giving me the opportunity. I'm not quite sure if my background is quite noisy here. So I'm currently looking for an entry-level position as a new grad, and to some degree that I find it even more competitive than like a junior or mid-level positions. But I'm also in the position that I don't feel comfortable validating all the outputs or codes generated by large language models on my own, which is different from the senior data scientist position. So I'm not quite sure at this stage of my life if you would suggest someone like me to first focus on getting myself in the door first by drilling those interview style questions like time SQL practice instead of focus too much on integrating AI workflow with my project.
Got it. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Sean, do you want to take it, or I can take it? Either way.
Why don't you take it? I can add some color or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a crack at it. And so like my thought is uh the sort of like AI is gonna help almost like accelerate your learning, if you will. Like if you actually look at the open source repo, like it's got a lot of best practices for, like many different components of being a data scientist effectively in the analytics space. And like being able to leverage that from for example, like, hey, I know what good looks like for like framing questions. I know what good looks like for designing an analysis. I know what good looks like for validating and stuff like that. And I know how to use it or I know how to do it with the help of AI in this new day and age is actually pretty powerful to be like your learning companion along the way. So if I were understanding your question correctly, um, the advice I would give is to sort of like use it to supercharge you. I mean, like there's the component of like, hey, we want like, should we understand the fundamentals and like, do it really, really well first before kind of like, the math before the calculator, right? Like that analogy. I actually think doing both at the same time would actually give you an unfair advantage over everyone else who's kind of like, just I don't know, like grinding the traditional way. I don't know if Sean, you agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like a challenging time on either side of the spectrum where it's like if you're coming in totally new, now there's this like very new AI thing that is able to do a lot of the stuff that like was more kind of entry level analysis work for another side of the spectrum. Like a totally new way of working is being created. And so people who have been doing this work for a decade or two or three decades are having a hard time adjusting to basically unlearning things that used to be very good habits that now become bad habits. So I think the only thing I would add to it, I agree with everything Hai says, and the only thing I would add to it is I think like the job of like most people are changing. No one really knows what it's gonna be, but like at least right now, like my bet is and where I'm investing is that the job's changing from like me doing analysis to me building agentic systems that do analysis for me. Um, right now I have to validate a lot of that. Who knows what happens later on as these get better and better. You're gonna need less validation, less validation. Just like with like, GPT 3.5 a few years ago, it was like, oh, it hallucinates all the time. And now it's like, yeah, it still hallucinates, but I mean, like, you're not checking for hallucinations as much as you used to. And that's probably gonna happen like industry wide with other validation stuff too. So either way, like I think my just TLDR there is like investing in learning how to like onboard and nurture and build out agentic systems, I think is going to be kind of like a new valuable skill rather than like just doing kind of like the traditional way of learning analysis. I don't know anything else high on that.
You nailed it. I mean, definitely a tough time. And it is our belief that if anybody, not just experienced or not just entry level, who master and are comfortable using, for example, right now, Claude Code is probably going to have, again, back to the same spiel, unfair advantage over others. Okay, cool. Thank you guys. Unless there's any question, you can catch us in the Slack community. And yeah, hopefully I think we'll see a lot of you in the boot camp tomorrow. If you want to join, please feel free to join us as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.